I've been working in the large deal space for the last 50 years, and when you're in that space, as in any of your spaces, you start to see things. You look at the same problem again and again and again. And I helped over 100 Fortune 500 companies with their largest deals, sitting in the deal rooms, talking about the tactics, how to win a big contract, etc. And I often ask them, so which books are you reading about this topic? And they said, well, no commercial, sales, or marketing book is covering our type of deals. And then I heard the same thing so many times in so many countries, in all continents of the world. And I also saw things that they did, some really smart moves, that I also didn't find in the complex sales literature. Instead of calling it complex sales, we call it orchestration. Because when you do larger deals, you do orchestration, it's not regular sales. Well, what we did, we looked for, because in even the largest companies of the world, you have rainmakers. They wouldn't tell that on a shareholder meeting, because it's kind of showing vulnerability. But even in the largest companies in the world, you have 5 to 10 rainmakers, not more. And they are responsible for the biggest contracts they ever do. Not alone, they're orchestration leaders. Like we talked about in IBM, they call it deal makers. They have different names. So we looked at, for example, IBM, Morocco's largest deal ever. They didn't trust anyone in the Moroccan team to orchestrate the deal, so they flew in a Swiss guy. And that's Swiss guy we interviewed. So those are the type of people we looked for. Because as in anything, you want to study the best. And so we've studied those people from all around the world, and we looked for common denominators. Like, what do they have in common? But as we spoke about certain personality traits, so all of them are high scoring on pattern recognition. Much like group CEOs of largest companies in the world, they're good at seeing things. So mega dealers, serial entrepreneurs, and group CEOs of big companies have a similar trait. They're good at seeing patterns. Much like in sports, some of you done team sport, like they foresee the next move. And to do a large deal, you actually need to see a bigger picture. So a normal sales guy would come back and say, yeah, this company gave me an RFP, I responded to it. That's not how a mega dealer does it. They go in and find a way bigger deal. So they come back with 2 extra zeros on potential. Anyway, so we're going to share some snippets of those insights with you. And just a few words about me. So I own or co-own 21 companies. It's a combination of clean tech companies and SaaS companies. I also started the world's first account-based marketing company. So if you Google my name, you'll find like the father of ADM, things like that, which is actually a pre-version of what we will talk about today. Magnus?
Yes.
I have 4 kids, live in Stockholm.
From Luleå?
From Luleå, exactly. Yeah, very important. So this is so cool. The first person that comes here is from the same place. What are the odds? Yeah. She's like, you're from Norrbotten. Yeah, again. That's so crazy.
Beautiful. Yeah, hi everyone and welcome again. So my name is Magnus Ahlström. I have about 30 years experience background in sales and marketing in different roles in both startups and multinational. And by the last 15 years or so, I've really been into the...
By the way, connect with us by focusing on the barcode.
You'll get a chance at the end of the session.
And for the book, drop an email to me with your name, address, and phone number.
Perfect. And as I said, for the last 15 years or so, I've been focusing mostly on those type of deals that the Megadeals framework is a really good fit with. So in the invitation today, you were promised to get some takeaways, and one of the takeaways is, okay, what are the criteria? Are your company, the company that you're working on, is that a good fit for this discipline? And if you look into that, so we talk about one basic criteria. So if you're in business to business, because we're talking about business to business now, You could either target an infinite market. You have maybe products at a low cost that you want as many companies as possible in through your lead pipe, and then you have SDRs working them. You probably get bartered more or less every day on LinkedIn and other channels. People want to connect, and then they start selling. And that's one way, and that's a methodology that's been developed over years, working quite good for not super good, I would say, but rather good for the companies targeting an infinite market. But when you're targeting a finite market, if you targeting a market, a niche market, you can usually have a few companies that account for the largest amount of revenues in that market. And if you target, it could be like 5 companies, 10, 50 companies, then you can't afford to burn the bridges with these.
Or even a few hundred, but limited.
Yeah, a limited number.
Yeah, biggest companies in the region or something.
Yeah, for sure. And then you can't afford to have someone chasing after these leads and potentially burn the bridges from the start. So that's one of the criteria. If you target a finite market, and another characteristic of these companies, because coming back to the research that was made on these large deals and on these companies, the Fortune 500 companies, was also that merely none of these companies became this huge company without doing these mega deals. So that's also something that sort of connects into that the importance of this.
Probably also correct to Cisco. You often think that the Fortune 500 companies have a very wide spread of revenue. They typically have a very high concentration and a top list of often less than 100, even less than 50, sometimes less than 20 accounts.
Definitely. And if you look to your own business, you'll probably see the same pattern in terms of number of customers. So, and what other characteristics we saw then was that there was a need to anchor cross hierarchy with the customer. You didn't just sell to one person on the other side. There was people from board level down to the people actually working with the product needed to be involved or on board in order for you to get the deal. There were also different departments that need to interact. You needed to get the sign off from procurement, but from IT, a lot of different departments. So you needed to talk to a lot of people in order for this to happen. You have a complex offering, something that you can usually measure by the amount of time it takes to onboard a new salesperson. It could take, typically, if you're into, I myself have experience trying to onboard people when we had a strategy to grow with hiring new salespeople. There were onboarding times that lasted 12 to 18 months, and we didn't really succeed it anyway. So that was a huge problem. But also something that shows you have a complex product, I would say. And it's a complex environment on the customer side, meaning that your product needs to fit into existing processes, existing technologies, and so forth. And in all cases, these criteria it leads to what Christopher was referring to previously as a rainmaker dependency. Because what we saw then was there was usually a handful of people who could handle that complexity. That was usually, scale up. It was usually a founder, a CTO together, doing these deals. So when these companies, in the cases where you try to grow by hiring additional salespeople, these rainmakers ended up supporting these instead. So that was sort of a no-go way. So, for example, this is Bora, one of the founders, co-founders of Megadeals, and he was an executive of a world-renowned company in the Nordic market doing super deals. And he was, doing the stuff that a mega dealer is doing, doing the account mapping, doing everything, handling it on his own, working pretty much like, this guy. At least if you're a bit older, you know who this guy was. He would handle everything, Bruce Willis. And what you wanted to do instead, if you're in this situation, is for sure to get the rainmakers and scale them so they become, instead of being, Bruce Willis, to become more of a Iron Man, have a lot of drones going out and can address a lot of different issues at the same time. So here is
just a key point there, like Magnus is saying, no company that we've seen have been able to copy the rainmakers. They can do billion hours of sales training. They cannot copy the rainmakers. So the recipe for growth is to scale the rainmakers, not copy them. So I see this mistake again and again. Founders are like, yeah, now we're going to scale beyond the first 5 to clients, and they recruit a sales team when they brought in an A round or B round, and then those salespeople, to Magnus's point, they actually drag down the rainmakers, taking away their capacity, because they're like, oh, so I had this meeting with them, they're asking difficult questions, can you come with me to the meeting? And they're like, oh, I got this email from the client, I was tricky questions, can you help me answer them? Like 11:30 in the evening, you're typing away. And so we've seen examples where they bring in 10 new salespeople and they're lowering their pace. And they end up in what we call the calendar problem. So the founder, typically, like you said, CEO, head of sales, CTO, they're being bogged down by salespeople that cannot do the rainmaker's job. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have the personal experience with it. The last role I had before we moved here to the US was as a chief commercial officer in a consulting firm, and the CEO had hired on 3-4 new people to the sales team in order to scale. And where I ended up in that situation was that I needed to take away my time from addressing, trying to make the deals with customer and support them with questions, join them to their customer meetings as well. And that had the opposite effect, indeed, in the end. So that's one point. And further, I mean, when you're talking about these bigger deals, another finding was that it's pretty much like in politics you see today. If you look back to the Trump election, other elections in countries, the war in Ukraine, think about the media effect, the messaging that surrounds that. Because if you think of an election that you need to do, you need to win a lot of votes. You need to win the most votes in order to win the election, obviously. And it's pretty much the same situation when you want to land a large deal, a mega deal. Because there are so many people on the buyer side, usually around 50, maybe 100 people that you need to influence. You need to get consensus from these people that your solution is the best in order for you to get the contract in the end. So, and another finding in this research was as well that the balance usually was a bit off. If you looked at the balance, how you budgeted, how you invested in sales versus marketing. And I think most of you who's been around for a while can relate to the fact that it's usually easier to put an extra amount of money into an additional salesperson, whereas the marketing budget needs to sort of be put on restraint. So these companies that were successful, they actually invested 50-50 in sales and marketing. And it's not about spending more money, it's about spending them in a different way.
Yeah, very often our discussion with the client leads to them, if they have 10 salespeople, they let go of 3 to 4 and move that money into marketing instead. Yeah.
So you get a better effect with the same type of money, basically. And also what we also see, and what's very common as well, is that you tend to invest the marketing budget you have, you tend to invest that in the top of the funnel. So you want to have as much leads as possible. So you spend, can we fill up the pipeline so we get a lot of leads, the marketing qualified lead, and hand over to salespeople, and then they can do their stuff, kind of stuff. So, and that's totally opposite to how it has to work when it comes to Megadeals. Then in those situations, you need to work together, sales and marketing, and you need to have, instead of having this traditional lead focus, you need to have a deal-centric focus. You need to work together to take the customer through their decision journey, in through all the hurdles when you close the deal, the risk mitigation and all of that parts in order to make the deal happen. And that can only happen if you work smart with these kind of tools. So the ability to scale is sort of set into a couple of different cornerstones. So initially, for the rainmakers, you need to take away their unnecessary tasks. You need to get them their time to do what they do best, to close these complex deals. You need to make sure that they can scale with video content and all the type of content. You can do repetitive, make a factory. Usually, if you think about it, you go to meetings, you address the same topic time after time. It's concerns about technology, it's concerns about whatever. Instead of spending all of your time in those meetings, produce material that support that, automate that process instead.
Just to be clear, you're not taking away the meeting with the client, but instead of having 12 meetings to close a deal, you might shorten it to 4 meetings because you scale with content.
Definitely. And also, I mean, it's about the team play, as I said previously. We talk about orchestrating the sales and marketing and product working together with the same purpose, with a clear focus on a clear customer and taking that customer through their decision journey. That's how you become more successful instead of handing over it from one to another. And then also, I mean, there's a lot of different type of rainmakers in different type of companies. So there is still an opportunity for them to improve further, for sure, to upskill them. Certain social selling methodology, which is super interesting and gives you a lot of leverage as well. I know that Christopher is going to talk about that a little more shortly as well. So this is...
There's one common misconception. Everyone thinks that the rainmakers are commercial people. They're quite often a CTO. Like, to close the big deal, you need to roll in the CTO, especially with more high-tech cases. So, yeah.
To build security.
Or in a company like system architects, those kind of profiles.
Yes. Christopher, I think this is your cue, talking about how we're...
Yeah, so the methodology is pretty comprehensive, and in the first case, we went from $3 to $90 million euros in just 2 years without increasing the marketing and sales spend. Now, there's a detail here that is important. So in this company, I was the lead investor, and I stepped in as CRO. I had a full backing from the board and from the founders. They're like, do your thing, Christopher. So I could do it this way, that you'll see soon. And it was very, very tempting then to move it out to normal customers as a third party. But there's a key difference. How many of you have tried a personal trainer? Well, fewer than I said, but you can relate. So I'm pretty kind of good at training alone. But when I do one time per week, I'm with my personal trainer, and she's beating the shit out of me. I cannot. Before, when I did competitive sports, I could, but I can no longer motivate me to go the extra mile in the gym. And she's like whipping us. And the thing here, I was inside this company during 2 years, so I was on the ground every day, and I had the mandate to run the show around sales and marketing. So obviously, if someone complained and went to the CEO, he said, well, no, you accept it, or you kind of move away. So I could be a bit of a boss. Anyway, and that is a bit like a personal trainer. Because what happened is that we then started to implement this with regular clients. But it's 12 areas with pretty big changes. So I think we underestimated how fast companies would adapt. So we would come in and we would help them implement it, and we stressed them to death. We came with too big of a change management in too short time. So, I mean, we built a decent company from 0 to $2.7 million in just 2.5 years profitably. So, I mean, decent company, but we had to go back to the drawing board because the clients couldn't cope. So we had to find a model where they could cope. I mean, you basically want clients to start somewhere and get a relatively high effect, and then they can gradually eat their way into the whole model. So we went back to the drawing board and we asked ourselves, how can we inject 50-60% of the full effect and go on the steepest end of the law of diminishing returns that existed in almost all areas, including training. So you have like, I train 1 time per week, good effect, 2 times, good effect. The difference between 6 and 7, very small, right? Of course, if you wanted to be the best in the world, you have to go all the way here, but the early effect is found in quite a few things. So we also brought in, so I'm the main founder of Megadeals and the author of the book, but I'm not a good CEO, and I don't even like it. So luckily, there was a Swedish guy that had built the biggest Malaysian software company, a $3 billion company. He said, I'm considering moving back to Sweden. Do you know any big company looking for a group CEO? I said, no, there's a small company with huge potential that's looking for a CEO. Because I'm good at go-to-market, product market fit strategy. He's good at scalability and profitability. So the reason why this Malaysian company was so high valued, they had 50% bottom line, which is crazy high if you're in the tech space. So anyway, so he and I and a few others were, okay, we need to shrink this down, and we decided, let's do 2 areas out of 12, do them really well, and then we move the rest into playbook. So like they're combined with the Megadeals book, which is more conceptual, the playbook is a recipe. And then we launched that 8 months ago, and we've gone from $100,000 to $2.3 million in ARR in 8 months with 0 churn. I'll show you those 2 services. So we claim to be the world leader and innovator of deal orchestration enablement, which is where marketing and sales finally come together. And that was the missing piece. I started the world's first account-based marketing company. Was first mentioned by Gartner and all those, but we failed to get sales and marketing to properly work together. Most companies that claim to do ABM, I would say 95%. So I don't want to give any names, but we primarily work with startups and scale-ups. We do work with 4 of the biggest in the world. And when we start working with that, we bring marketing and sales in the same room, and they present each other to. They go like, "Hi, I'm Christopher." So we're like, "They've never met. They don't know each other." So they are representing this, but they haven't met the top scorers. What the fuck? So they definitely don't talk, right? I don't need any more evidence. And then when you ask the sales leaders, what kind of support do you get for your biggest deals? Nothing. Okay, good. Great. Anyway, so it's basically the whole recipe, to summarize this, is to combine very targeted sales efforts with hyper-targeted media and with a social selling method that you'll see snippets of soon. And I give you a paradox now that I'll repeat later. So the paradox in winning large accounts, where you need to, to Magnus' earlier point, you need to have a tremendously high win rate and a very low, we've invented a new KPI, it's called BBR, burning bridges rate. Like, if you have a finite market, and we talked earlier, like you're going for the loudspeaker producer, those, like that's a fine example of a finite market. You have to have a crazy high win rate, and not only that, you have to burn very few bridges, because that group of people speak to each other. They go to the same trade shows, they switch jobs in between, so they know each other. So you need to keep a very good reputation. So even if you don't win a deal, they should still keep a high view on you. Does that make sense? So it's a bit like, so if I'm at the gym, and I'm like, first time I see you, I'm like, "Hi, I'm Christopher, who are you?" You think I'm super weird, right? Yeah. So what you want to do, and this is the paradox, to win large deals, and especially in a finite market, they don't, to be clear, they don't have to be large. If you have a finite market, you need to go a different way. You actually want to defer any yes or no as far as you can. The problem with the classic methods of cold calling email is that you're asking for a yes or no immediately. It's like, "Hey, do you want to go on a date with me?" I know your boyfriend, so I'm just kidding. "You want to go on a date with me?" You're like, "No, I don't know. Who the fuck are you?" Like, so to have a crazy high win rate and to be able to infiltrate these companies, you need to defer the decision. So you need to have a set of methods that are gradually, again, taking the gym analogy, we meet and I look at you. Second time, I kind of nod at you. Third time, I might nod at you again. Fourth time, I'm like, "Hi." Fifth time, "Hi." Sixth time, "Hi." And then maybe the 7th time, we're ending up doing some exercise between like, "Yeah, I've seen you here a lot. How are you doing?" Yeah. And then, but I'm still not presenting myself because it's too fast. It's awkward. So I like common sense. So if you want a crazy high win rate, you need to do marketing and sales based on common sense. Is it just that, and as Magnus said, even some seriously big companies still run crazy young, not good SDRs on their biggest accounts. That's absolute suicide. It's absolutely idiotic, okay? Because that is like, "Hi, I'm Christopher," the first time, and you're like, "Whoa, weird guy," right? But if we mimic that gym scenario where I gradually, and then maybe the 10th time we end up talking, and then I say, "Hi, I'm Christopher, by the way." I'm not weird, right? So that's the kind of thing we want to mimic. So the paradox, again, is to counterintuitively, potentially, but you want to defer the yes or no as far as you can. because then you get a yes, more likely. Does that make sense? So the two things we do that are on the steep end of the law of diminishing return, the first one is to be crazy up to speed with the organization we're targeting. How are they organized? Who's sitting where and everything? I'm speaking to these guys, and I know that for us to win the kind of deal, we eventually need to get a yes from these guys and potentially some over here from other departments or functional areas. I'm pretty sure that all of you have been in a deal situation where you, like, okay, we agree. I even did it like a year ago before we had this. It was a big Portuguese company, big, but 3,000 employees, and I had 20 yeses. It was a Zoom call, you know, all these videos, and our point person was like, okay, do you want to go ahead with Megadeals? Yes. Do you want to go ahead? Okay, cool. So, and I said, great, I'm sending over the contract and we look for a start date. And they're like, yeah, we just need to get a formal yes from Willem. I'm like, Will who? Oh, he's the head of Europe. I'm like, you have a head of Europe? I didn't know. You think he took a meeting with us? No. He was so insulted by his own team that they didn't bring him into the loop until the last minute. So he didn't even take a meeting with us. This is psychology. He felt completely rounded. Like, what is this? Because he was like, they're playing politics with me. Now he's not there anymore, but luckily, so we're again talking to them. But so you know what I mean, right? Or you say, this is your budget, and then a lot of people don't make a difference between budget and sign-off level, which is kind of common sense if you're dealing with large accounts all your life, so you know that. Like, you can have a budget of $100 million, but your sign-off level is $100,000. So it doesn't matter if it's your budget, because it needs to go up 3 levels. And then you're ending up in this internal pitching game, which is super difficult. And going back to your point, if it takes 18 months to introduce a good person to do an equal sell as the founder, all of a sudden we're asking the client after a few meetings, so now you go pitch. Good luck.
And
Do you normally do the stakeholder mapping together with the customer?
Yeah, so we have a meeting with them where we look at, okay, the deals you've made previously, like your Fortune 500s, who did you need to get on board? And it's of course never right, but we want to do it as little wrong as possible. And then we're serving you or your equivalents with this intelligence. But it's not just the administration, it's also LinkedIn links, and we're monitoring some statistics on them, etc. We're feeding it with news, etc. So it's kind of but this is a small part of the offering. But then the second piece is to use the same stakeholder map for 2 more things. Oops.
just want to add on this,
Yeah, sure.
because I think, it makes sense, doesn't it? And if you're into this type of selling, you want to do. But the problem is, and why it's a part of the offering as well, is that often it gets sort of overlooked, at least in the detail it needs to be. So it's a way of pushing you to really map out all the internal but also external stakeholders. I would say sometimes if you're selling into,
it could be strategic advisor or
for sure.
These third-party vendors that are playing, like you said, they're near you in the tech stack. So you need to be friends with their leaders because they will ask them, so what do you think about company X? So you need to have that sphere of influence. And everyone that we talk to say that it's common sense to have this, but almost no one has the time. So this is not rocket science. It's just that the best salespeople, they're so crammed with work, they don't have the time to do this work. So they go into meeting blind, kind of surviving on skills and talent, but then you're like, 3 new people in the room, I have no idea who they are. Yeah. Okay, and the second thing that we do, which is also on the steep end, is a very detailed media coverage. So connected to the 37 stakeholders you had on the other map, we're researching them on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and we're dropping content to them. So we basically, we want to create the gym experience. So we gradually create an awareness around not just your brand, the problems you're solving, but also your category and the reference you have from the same industry. But there's one piece that is critical. We're also building a brand of the persons that will or are interacting with that company. So it's super superficial. It's more superficial than makeup. But the thing is, when and I don't want to drop the name, but one of the big accounts that we're working with, we saw they were checking us out heavily. They didn't like our stuff, comment, no emails, nothing, just hovering over our website on our LinkedIn account. We're like, oh, they're top listed on all the measurements. So then we turn on this media machinery to them and just let it be. 2 months later, we didn't email and call or nothing, just soft massaging with media. After 2 months, I got an email from their marketing leader saying, everyone at X is talking about Megadeals. It's not true, obviously, but that was her perception. The problems you're talking about, we tried to solve for 7 years. It doesn't work. We tried agencies, experts from Seattle, platforms, etc. We can't solve it. And she meant the coordination of marketing and sales to the big deals. Unless you price yourself out, this is a pretty cool email, right? Unless you price yourself out, we want to engage you guys. Can you meet? And that's not the end of the cool story. So then I go there, bring a colleague, and the 100 meters from, I don't do yards, but 100 meters from the reception to the meeting room, there's 5 people that I have never seen that go, hi, Christopher. And my colleague's like, do you know them? I'm like, no, I think they know me. Because obviously, in that case, I knew I would be the one facing them. So we built a brand around Megadeals, the problems, the category reference, but also me. So, and then coming into the meeting room, there's 12 people sitting there. It's not very usual you have a first meeting with 12 people. It was basically the 2 top levels in the Nordics at least, and a few other people. And they spent the first 15 minutes describing to us why they should buy. It's a bit like, this is weird. So they're telling us why they should buy. They even motivate, because we work with a lot of clean tech companies, and we even tell the world about that. They're like, we're kind of sustainable. Okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, we do have a lot of other clients, but they've seen in our profiling that we have about 20 clean tech companies in 4 continents. So they're like, we're also kind of clean. Yeah. Anyway, so, and the rest of the meeting is scope, timeline, who's doing what, and price. So I'm leaving that meeting with a verbal yes. Of course, you that are dealing with large companies know that then there's like 2 months of admin to get it approved. Their online systems, like Cisco probably has the same, right? There's a lot of mechanics to get it to close, but I'm leaving a meeting with a yes. Anyway, and the techniques we're using are the 3 main ones. So the first one I described to you, we're researching the exact people, dropping content to them. The second one is technique, probably my only technological invention. So that was when we invented ABM. So sometimes we target all employees. This is relatively unusual because in most cases, you don't need to convince several thousand people. You need like 5 to, I mean, we've looked at cases where a few hundred, but normally 5 to 100 is a pretty decent size. You don't need to target all, but we use it kind of a impact, if you want. And then we also geographically ring fence with positive and negative filters in Meta, so Facebook and Instagram, both their head offices and some regional offices, but also certain people's homes. So we're like, okay, chairman, CTO, blah, 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 blah. Where do they live? Oh, we ring fence their house. It might hit a neighbor, but it's 100 by times 100 meters, pretty sharp. So we're basically using media to infiltrate this company, both before talking to them, but also during, like you said, during the sales process, because typically you meet a few people and then you branch out. They bring in more people, right? Yeah. So you need to prepare for the internal anchoring, and you need to do it while speaking to them. And then when you want to grow the existing account. So anyway, so we're using these techniques mixed, and we're pushing not just regular commercial messages about the problems, the reference, your category, etc. We're intentionally profiling the people that are or will interfere with this company. Interact is a better word. So we get this Hollywood effect, the one I described for company X. And it's super effective, even though it's super superficial. And there's another factor we spoke about it earlier today. People want to be in the know. So when you speak internally about a certain vendor and your colleagues have heard about this company a lot, they want to go, yeah, I know about them. It's kind of it's psychology, right? You want, yeah, I know about them. They seem to be good. That information can be ultra superficial. Yeah, and also using a lot of third-party media coverage, because if you do a PR thing, it might be seen by a lot of people, but maybe 1% of them are relevant. So then you take third-party media and target it to the right audience with a much higher effect. So I give you an example. So we actually oversubscribed the round in a week, which I'm pretty proud of. And we had targeted 25 investors, 15 said yes. But then afterwards, I thought that, wow, fundraising, oversubscribing in a week, that's a big news for the Swedish industry press, or sorry, Swedish financial press. They were like, yeah, that's not interesting. Okay. Anyway, so Shit magazine published it. But I don't care. People don't, so we took that news and pushed it in through our paid channels. And people are like, wow, you oversubscribed in a week, and it's like super impressive. And they don't pay attention. They don't go, is this a credible publication? Most people don't put that time into it. There's, of course, some cynical people that are like, but this is not a big paper. Yeah, okay. But you get the point, right? And then also every second week showing who is reacting on these kind of activities. And again, feeding in the LinkedIn links, because here you want to do the third gear. You want to do social selling to them. So before going into the social side, I want to share a few things more on the fundamental research. Are you with me so far? Yeah, make sense? Questions? Yeah?
Question. Just curious to know, what about those people that don't use social media? Like, how do you target them?
What about those people that don't use social media? We don't catch them. So I don't know if you saw, but there was a picture showing the stakeholders, and there was this ellipsis that were covering part of the stakeholder map, and neither sales nor social media, nor media coverage. None of them is reaching all. So you basically, so you have a very relevant question. You need to mix things to seriously infiltrate these kind of companies, because you won't get all of them. And some people have an overbelief in LinkedIn, like, yeah, everyone's on LinkedIn. Yeah, but tech people, for example, a lot of scientists and tech people, they're never there. So certain communities inside these accounts, like when you want to be built into this, sorry for using you as an example, when you will be designed into the loudspeakers, those people are not hanging out on LinkedIn. We are, but they are not. So we need to influence them in other channels. Yeah.
Well, thinking, I'm not a musician, and I remember I didn't get my first LinkedIn when I started working in the investment world.
Yeah.
None of my colleagues use LinkedIn.
Yeah. No, exactly. Like, so you're basically saying that none of your colleagues are using LinkedIn. Yeah. I think LinkedIn is good, just to be clear, but is it the silver bullet? No. If your marketing team is relying on LinkedIn, question it. Because it's just not good for enough people. Anyway. So there's 5 big findings, going back to the common denominators. So the mega dealers of the world are amazing at aligning what they sell with 1 or 2 key initiatives. Big companies typically have 3 to 5 strategic programs. Some people call them key initiatives, big bets, they have different names. Those of you that are from big companies can relate. There are 3 to 5 big things that are going on. And a lot of money is allocated.
I want to touch on that because, as you said, I mean, it's so super important in order to be able to win this deal. And sometimes, I mean, people think, oh, it's hard to find out. It's super simple. I mean, if you go to the company's annual report, you will see it directly. So it's, I mean, it's not.
It's actually even simpler in the US, because in the US, you are forced to declare them in your annual report. You even have to declare what the metrics are. How are these key initiatives evaluated? So they're super transparent. So if you just spend some time looking at the annual report, you will see this. And I give you an easy takeaway. So you probably save half of your time by this point alone. So by just checking, is what we do fitting one of the key initiatives? If not, don't spend time on that account. If you did that one thing, if you take that home from today, you'll double your sales. Is that impactful? Because you will not waste time on the wrong things. And disqualifying is one of the key traits of megadealers. They're amazingly cynical. They're like, I smell tire kicker here. Because a lot of clients are, especially from big companies, like, yeah, I'm super interested in your technology. Can we have a meeting? They want to learn. So they're abusing you to learn. You need to be extremely cynical and like disqualify. And this is the easiest disqualifier. Make sense? And also, yeah.
All right. Just to something that you mentioned earlier how, because we're dealing in finite markets, it's very important to have a high hit rate.
Yes.
A success rate.
Yeah.
How does that go together with what you just said about disqualification?
It has to do with timing. So your question, to repeat it, so if you're dealing with the finite market and we disqualify key initiatives, how does it work on the high hit rate and low burning bridges rate? So basically, it's related to your time, because I'm pretty sure, unless you're in an unusual company, that time is a limiting factor. And some of you are the key people in your companies. Your calendar is a limiting factor. So every hour you're spending on the wrong company, that is not wrong forever, talking about finite markets, but right now it's wrong. Right now, there's nothing in there that we can relate to. The top management and the VPs will not care about what you do unless they have which is very rare, they have an outspoken set of key initiatives they don't care about, which is unusual. But that happens, but it's unusual. So it's about timing, and it's not a one-year race. So with those accounts, we put them aside, and we monitor them, and we see, okay, next annual report. Yeah, make sense?
Yes, but it's still a little bit counterintuitive for me, because if you look at, like, certain businesses,
Yeah.
it naturally has low hit rates, okay?
Certain
You have
businesses naturally have low hit rate, okay?
Assume a company wants to enter this market, and it's a big market, and there are several players, etc. You will have poor hit rates.
Right.
Failing fast is then, in the way I've been taught, is then good. Like, get a no quickly so you can move on to something that has better potential.
Well,
Yeah.
but if you have a finite market, you don't want to have a no quickly. So you're better off disqualifying them on a distance. Doesn't mean you should be passive. You can still do marketing to them, but you shouldn't put sales numbers on them. You can do soft marketing and social selling. You kind of massage them. And I'll come back to that soon. I'll show you another model, because when you come with the new category, certain rules are different. I'll show you soon. The second one we covered, the best megadeals are good at understanding the ecosystem. Yes.
I have one more on this. Practically, because you also said before it's important not to burn bridges.
Yeah.
And when you look at somebody who you may need as a decision maker later on, but he or she is in that mode of, hey, now I want something from you. I know it's not going to lead to that deal. But how do you practically do that without burning that bridge?
I'll come back to that question too. You'll soon have more things to cover. But basically, this is, for most companies, a big winner. To just click share, like touch phone. Deny it, I guess. Yeah. Okay. And then the second one we covered. The third one we'll cover more. So part of the answer here is to do this hyper-targeted media to kind of massage people, not just the core group you're speaking to or you want to speak to, but also people around and above them. So you're preparing for this internal selling that goes on, because you will not meet all these people. I mean, you don't get access, regardless of what you sell.
Quick question.
Yeah.
About the second one, understand map and the ecosystem. So for existing customers,
Yes.
they're also changing their stakeholders, right?
Yeah.
How often do you do the mapping for
Oh,
them?
we update it on a bi-weekly basis.
It's only bi-weekly.
Yeah, yeah. And I will come back to this, but part of the answer is to use this hyper-targeted media. I'll come to the third component later. This is really interesting. Everyone that we interviewed, I mean, you know the term champion. This is not the same. Champion is typically someone that loudly take your part internally. They're like, I really want to go with Therese or Yoda. I really want to go with Yoda. I think she's amazing. And they kind of chest up. A Trojan horse is not the same. So a lady from Accenture, she calls them mushrooms. They grow in the dark. So the Trojan horses are the people that typically, to your report, they're very close to the problem. They have typically very little, both formal and informal power. Their way to exercise power is to tell you things. So they will leak information to you. So what every mega leader has told us that if I don't have several Trojan horses, I'm not going to win. I know that. Because then someone else has them. So, and the Trojan horses are quite often, if you read regular sales book, they're like, yeah, always go for the top. Yeah, of course, but you also need to have fingers into people sitting very near the problem. And they typically feed you with information, not because they're illoyal to their employer. It's sometimes just because they think their boss is a bit slow. So like, we totally need to change this. They just don't get it yet. So, yeah, who has been a Trojan horse? I have several times. Who has used Trojan horses? Yeah. So these are pivotal, and I would put a tick box in your checklist. First, this one, easy, and then definitely this one. Do we have 1 or 7 Trojan horses? Yes or no? In your pipeline meetings. And then the last one, so all companies are looking at how can we mitigate our own risk? But you also need to actively look at how do we mitigate the customer's risk. I would say the companies that are sequentially on a big volume doing large deals have built mitigation of risk into their business model. Like Siemens, we've studied carefully. Very, very good company. Zajamas. They have a very detailed way of doing mitigation of risk. So here, for example, to give you an easy takeaway, you should have a meeting with a client which is about risk, where you transparently and openly say, so if we engage, there are a few risks that we want to talk about. And if you solve all of them, are you credible or not? Actually not. Because at least if you want to, I mean,
This just should be something.
yeah. I mean, it's even smart to intentionally introduce a risk that you cannot solve. Because no C-level VP person believes that there is a complex delivery without risk that doesn't exist, right? Doesn't exist. So it's better to say there are risks. These we can cover. These ones we can semi-mitigate. This one is a risk. And then they go, okay, yeah, we can accept that. Does it build trust or destroy trust to do that? It builds trust, yeah. So you basically, you can even do this, so this can be misused. So if you want to lie to a person, you intentionally tell them something that you're bad at, then they will believe the rest you say. I don't think you should do that, but you can also, for a good purpose, do it in business. You're transparently showing that there are a few risks. This one we cannot solve, because we can together address it, but it will be a risk. Yeah? You can skip reading. I'll show you a model, which is actually going back to your earlier question. So when you are introduced, when your company is pioneering a new category, the buying pattern is different. So, and this W should be sitting next to this figurative hierarchy. I know they're not sitting like this, but this is a way to illustrate hierarchy. Owners, board, C-level, VPs, blah, blah, blah. And we have Stefan on floor -5 with the triple screens, low ceiling. When you're flushing, it's like, there's a sound in his room. He's super interested in your functionalities. He's like super intrigued. Can we look at this deep tech stuff? Or he wants your 57 pages white papers. He'll read them. These guys won't. Anyway, so back to the point. So when you sell an established category, it's more or less like if any one of you will buy a new CRM, it's like, that's a sanctioned category. It's not like, oh, do you need a CRM or not? It's sanctioned. So then you typically go into specifying the requirements, and you then map it towards vendors. So this is why, for example, a lot of salespeople coming from companies selling proven categories fail when they represent the company selling a new category, because the buying pattern is vastly different. When you sell a proven category, it's more like you need to do the selling as well. You need to do consent. You need to do all of this, but you need to win only the last I of the W. And this specification work is happening down here on this kind of level. Whereas if you're selling a new category, the first thing you need to do to even get airtime in there, you actually need to win somewhere up here, let's be unspecific, but in the higher levels, you need to get an acceptance on a conceptual level that the problem you're solving is a top priority, that the category you're representing is better than the prehistoric, the existing categories. It needs to be substantially better. And that your subcategory is better than the relevant subcategories. And what they do, because they don't have time to spend a lot of time with you, they go, Jeff, this makes sense. I don't have time to investigate this further, so I'm going to put you in touch with Laura. Laura is the head of marketing under the CMO, head of blah, blah, blah marketing. So Jeff is, by the way, a global expert in marketing analytics. So brilliant guy. Anyway, so then the topic is being pushed down to some kind of medium level. And then Laura and her team are spending a tremendous amount of time with Jeff to validate, is this category a new promise? Is it as good as the others said? And then they report back saying to the top, they go, yeah, what Jeff told you makes sense. We've carefully looked at what he's offering, his category, compared to the earlier categories. And it's relevant to look at further. And then these guys saying, great, okay, boom. Given, again, that the problem we're addressing is significant. Then they push it down again. And then we have I is the same, but the N is different. There is no N in a proven category because it's already sanctioned. Yeah, make sense? And this, based on this model, you also, that's why, for example, when you're, we're not covering that today, but I could actually talk a few hours about how you build your positioning and messaging if you promote a new category. Because when you promote a new category, you need to take into consideration what these different levels are looking at and the W. So you end up not just having a problem statement and your solution and references, which is the normal model, right? That's not enough. You need to have a problem statement, the competing categories and how they relate, the subcategories and how they relate, and then your solution and then the references. And very few companies, by default, are covering categories and subcategories. The Megadeals do this intuitively because they understand how a decision is made intuitively in a big company. So they talk about the competing categories. People tend to think that if you're a tech company, you think only about tech categories. But the most common competition on a category level is something else. So I can give you an example from an AI, really cool company in the Netherlands. They're using AI. There are 4 different AI engines that are complementary because, I mean, they have different skills. I mean, multi-regression analytics, you have the rest of the families. So they're looking at all the patterns in the world to detect tech trends. So this Dutch company were like, yeah, we have done this they were super ambitious. They're super smart guys. The solution is absolutely amazing. They're helping fashion companies to source the right green materials faster by this technology, to detect the winning material categories by pattern trends. Anyway, so they're like, yeah, we've compared us with the various technologies available. I'm like, okay, so how are these companies solving the sourcing of the new materials today? Yeah, they have Lisa, Stefan, Carl, like sustainability consultants that are out at fairs sourcing this. Okay, so you're competing with staff. Yeah, okay. So and we, on our category competition, is actually grow with more salespeople or scale the superstars. That's at Megadeals, our category competition. So it's not another Megadeals. And then on the second level, in the subcategories, like, do you want to? That's why we showed you that, just to make the point. Scaling with cold calls and emails, or do you want to do the deferred yes or no with softer methods that are hyper-targeted? That's a subcategory competition for us. But people tend to think too fast about the technology categories. You know what? You understand my point? So this Dutch company, we got them to switch business model. We said, don't sell a license. Because they can, I mean, with the new category, you can charge just too little. I said, well, go in and sell stuff. They're like, what do you mean you can't sell stuff? Well, I said, these guys are, because there's a lack of sustainability consultants. There's a lack of sustainability knowledge in the whole world. This is actually a crisis. is the elephant in the room, but that's another story. So we told them, why don't you pitch to the LVMH and the guys, did you sell AI-powered employees? Because then you can charge 1 or 2 or many salaries. But you do it in a 10th of the time and a 10x. So 10th of the time and 10x the value than Lisa, a sustainability consultant. And because they have already budgeted staff. So what's important when you do even small deals, you need to understand what you're up against and also what is already budgeted. So you kind of have to morph yourself. And especially when you come with the new category, you need to look at what is the current budgeting. What can I replace in the budget? So all of a sudden, they get yes after yes after yes. They're like, whoa, this is working. Because they don't have to promote the technology, crazy, tricky license agreements. They're selling FTEs with 1/10 of the cost, which is actually pretty profitable. Yeah? We do the same, by the way. We don't sell the platform. We do SaaS-enabled managed service. So all of a sudden, we can charge between 1 and 2 salaries. And we do the full work. And companies are replacing us with an SDR or with a junior marketeer. I mean, we are replacing an SDR or a junior marketeer. It's already budgeted. There is no deal orchestration enablement in any budget in the world. It doesn't exist. It's a new category. So we have to mimic what are they already buying. So then we're like, oh, we wanted to bring an SDR into the UK. Okay, we come in instead. We're like an SDR on superpowers. Anyway, you get the point? So the competing categories are not always the obvious ones. You need to seriously look at who and what is doing the job you are doing. And you need to mimic the way they pay to fit into the current budget. What happens otherwise? You need to wait until the next budget. But then for the next budget, you need to have sold it successfully to the top. Otherwise, there is no line saying blah, blah, blah category. It doesn't exist, right? So mimic their business model. So I want to share with you a slow flow. This is, again, mimicking the gym flow. So when it comes to social selling, the same account, the stakeholder list, you also want to do social selling too. So I give you the basic recipe first, and then I give you 4 variations. So again, we want to mimic the gym situation. The first thing you do, what's your name again? Alex. So I go into Alex's profile, scroll through his posts, and I go, oh, this one I like, and then great post, Alex, I also blah, 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 whatever. Doesn't have to be genius, like something simple. Basically the high. I've not added Alex as a contact yet, because again, we want to defer decisions. So we're not adding Alex. And then we wait a few days, and it's pretty likely that he's liking my comment and going, thank you, Christopher, right? Unless you're a complete psychopath. You agree? Yeah. And then you wait a few days again, and you go into another of Alex's posts, and you do the same thing. Comment, like, wait. So we're mimicking the gym scenario. And also, you had a term for it today. What do you call it? The culture of? The thank you, yeah. Yeah, the thank you economy. So basically, we want to have chances to say thank you, and gradually, we're not adding them as content, we're not asking for anything, we're just gradually doing the gym flow, but online, right? And then after like 3rd or something, comment I made, I add Alex as a contact, and in the contact request, I'm writing something related to the post I liked. Just, I love your posts, what you're doing in industry X, blah, blah. You can add those text in that contact request. It's very likely that you get a yes, right? Some people have principle, I never add people I remember. Okay, fine, but you very likely get a yes. And if you get a no, Alex will feel a bit awkward, unless he's a psychopath. He's like, okay, someone that is really pushing me online, I just dismissed. So sometimes later, he will feel bad. And when I meet him, he'll be, yeah, hi, Christopher. He'll be a bit weird. Yeah? And then you, again, wait a few days, and then you like and comment on new posts. And then you gradually can go in and share some valuable content. Like, look, we've done this, blah, 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 in your industry, whatever. You're yet not asking for a meeting. You're just gradually mimicking the gym situation. Or the coffee shop situation, you might go to the same coffee place and you meet people you've seen before, right? I know you have your breakfast place, etc. And gradually, you're moving into actually concluding and booking a meeting with them. And you do the same with the key, again, to stakeholder map, the key 5 to 10 people, you do it simultaneously with all of them. Then you're eventually standing in the living room and they had no idea how it happened. And you're not awkward, yeah? And at the same time, your face is shown in ads, so they're like, oh, who is this guy Christopher? He's like publicly well known. So you create a familiarity effect. So eventually, you've seen me in ads, you've seen me interacting with your posts, you even feel a bit like, okay, this important guy is liking my stuff. They don't know, of course, that they're not the only ones seeing it, but so you gradually go into a meeting. And then you have 4 different starters. So the first one is we call this give love, by the way, the give love flow. So most people that teach social selling is way too aggressive. And so give love. And the first flow is you do it to the ones that have clicked on your ads. But you're not going, so yeah, so you clicked on my ad. No. You're, again, same flow. It's just 4 different starts. And the second one is actually going directly into the give love without waiting for the media effect. And the third one, this is super, super effective. So if I want to, now we know each other already, but if I want to get involved with Jeff and Probalytics, I would write a post about Probalytics and the amazing work they do in the marketing analytics space. And I would comment Jeff and his amazing work and also relate it to his earlier work, which is in the same space. And who would read that, do you think? Yeah, Jeff. And the cool thing, it works even with relatively large companies. They don't say, the big companies, the top executives are not saying thank you, but they've seen it very often. So there's no trace here of, and that's why we created Megadeals. No, just pure showing, like, you guys are onto something amazing. No connection, that's why we built Megadeals. Nothing about that, just about that. And you were mentioning a few things about some key people. And we've seen examples like the biggest e-commerce company in the Nordics, the group CEO, shared it 15 times. And he then booked a meeting with a 25-year-old guy who had no experience. And he did this technique. It was just to, And then the fourth one is to share insights about your target market and the categories and subcategories. Make sense? So then after all of these 4, you're moving into this give loud flow, and then eventually you have a meeting. So you realize you've deferred the yes or no significantly. So, So basically, in essence, you're using the mix of these 3 to gradually create familiarity, defer a decision, and eventually unconnect. I had at one time 400 first-time contacts in IBM. People were like, who are you? You know my boss's boss and my boss's 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 boss. You know all my colleagues, who are you? So it was very easy to get meetings with that. But if you combine these 3, and in this softer way, still aggressive, but you're not asking them for yes or no. That's actually the key learning for today. It's a paradox, but it's critical. Make sense? Questions?
It seems like a lot of work to track all these people. How many big accounts would you be doing this with at any one time?
Right.
100 on the go, 1,000, 10?
No, so most of our engagements are focused on somewhere between 10 and 100 accounts. We have outliers that go like 300 accounts. We have extreme ones that go like 3. So we're working with one company. They're selling into the big process manufacturers and ASML in the Netherlands. So both the suppliers of the big process companies and the 2 big process, so maybe 3 accounts. But their potential volumes in these 3 accounts are like skyrocketing. We have another company selling into ESA and NASA. I mean, super finite market. I mean, crazy finite. But majority of the cases are more medium-sized deals with a finite-ish. So it could be like, well, these 100 companies represent my big potential over the coming 2 years. It's not forever, but this is my, like, we talked about the new category. You want to create a beachhead. We are very strict with crossing the class, by the way. So even if you have a category that can sell to anyone and whoever, you shouldn't. It's a bad idea. So cross the bridge, cross the chasm first with one industry, one use case, build references in that industry, and then you can add more references and more use cases, and do the bowling alley trick. But even if you have an infinite market, the early days is typically successfully finite. So, but yeah, to back to your question, so 5 to 100, sometimes 200, but I would say 50 to 100 is kind of the 80-20 rule, something like that, yeah.
2 questions. First, what is your favorite wisdom in the book? And second, what's the programs that you're offering to companies?
Right. Connected to your first one, my favorite wisdom is actually not scalable, unfortunately. It's connected to the W model. So I'm kind of the only one with a colleague doing this, which is kind of a special thing we do, but it doesn't scale. I think maybe I can do it because I've been involved with several hundred tech companies in so many industries, so I very quickly see the ecosystem around them and I can help them to design and switch to business models, because we're also very savvy in how big companies are making decisions, so we can kind of very fast tailor it. But this is what I think is the most fun, but it's definitely not scalable. Back to the programs we're offering, I can show you that. So we have our lightest model is equivalent to one kind of SDR salary or one relatively junior marketeer. So you're spending $9,000 worth of work in platforms and $2,500 on media spend. So 11.5 per month, and with a 3-month bidding period. And then your audience is max 1,000 people, which can be distributed across 5 to 200 companies, but typically 50 to 100 something. And just a comment on this one, so in the early phase, you want to try with few people to kind of scratch them a bit, and then when you get traction, you expand the audience. So you can have 5 in your early stage, and you have 30 when you're engaged with them. Make sense? And up to like equivalent of two monthly salaries. And then we've moved the other 10 areas into Playbook, which we have a community around it, so we're training our clients, more like a train-the-trainer. So we have the leaders on a monthly basis in a few-hour call where we coach them gradually how to get their teams with the other 10 areas. And they can do it at their pace they want.
The other question, I mean, this all makes sense, feels like on common sense, but I was just curious to know, when it comes to different industries, so some more in healthcare sector, I'm just curious to know, you're talking about your experiences in tech, but what type of differences do you see between different sectors and, with your approach?
We deal with medtech, especially one case from San Diego. Do we have a lot of mileage in that? No, we don't. We're relying a bit on the customer knowledge about that industry. Our deepest own knowledge is in energy and kind of any kind of SaaS, basically. That we have really deep domain expertise. Many people in the team that have long experience from those two. But the methods are applicable also when dealing with medtech and pharma. Medtech, even more than pharma, is so regulated that you can't say much, but yeah. And a lot of our companies are also running embedded cases. They're like you're not selling, but they're selling something embedded. Like we're going to be designed into something huge somewhere. We need to convince a lot of tech people in the ecosystem to get a category sanctioned higher up and that kind of play. Yeah.
But you can say, I mean, the research is made in a lot of different industries as well. So I mean, it's based on.
Yeah, the research is based on energy. We've done a lot of with Lockheed Martin. Airbus, Boeing, as we talked about, Ericsson, Tata, Accenture, so professional services, big outsourcing projects, infrastructure, military, airlines, SAP as well. But yeah, so kind of across industries, we basically looked at really large deals, and then we looked for who are the rainmakers. And that took a lot of time to find because they're not publicly shown. So you need to ask a lot of people internally. They're like, yeah, it's those 5. Yeah.
Is it mainly used for new sales or also?
No, for both, yeah. Yeah, you do it a bit differently, but especially the media component and the social is very effective if you want to go into more countries or more business units. And what you can do media-wise, you can take the reference case with the So you basically use the internal reference case and promote it to their other units. And they go, oh, that's about us. Click. Yeah.
So you make like the existing customer case already for them.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
But it follows the same.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm. Because most of the time, the people in other countries, they don't even know about what you've done in the first country. So it's a bit like new sales, but it is just an account. But then you get to a typical one where, so we did this in HP once, where we kind of did the matrix, countries and business units, and all of a sudden it was like a chessboard. Thank you. Good. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.